Chill here with Sirius Talis Moon, Mars Hour, and I see that there is also news report that Israel and Iran are preparing for Israel and Iran. It's also Israel and Iran. Let's face it, Israel, US, and Iran are preparing for boots on ground, and it's kind of like a completely off topic, but Mars is applying to Rahu, and it's not impossible to have a boots on ground in that case. Um, I don't know. I wonder if we should be moving to the northeast, if that is the case, because the northeast is the protected place of the um, people that are in those regions. If it's Iranian people, um, I know astrologically that the northeast is protected by Al Qaeda. So, and besieging of cities is related to Al Qaeda. So boots on ground is very Al Qaeda. And we see Mars applying to Ra with foam allowed. It may be, if possible, advisable to move northeast, but again, only with zero rape, zero slavery. Saturn Neptune here says that is not compatible for anything that violates sovereignty, even if it is work. Um, and again, I could be wrong, but I think if people, if it's Iranian civilians or Iranian people that are already zero rape, zero slavery, and are already applying all that I said, then any move towards the northeast and the work with Al Qaeda, the big bear, Ursa Majore, they probably already know that, unless there are any considerations against that. I don't know, but people will have to consult their local diviners. But if you consult a local diviner, please make sure that you know they're not in trafficking rings, and always consult your intuition. So, for Israelis and Europeans, okay, again, the move towards the northeast would be the move towards Finland and civilians. I'm talking about civilians. Soldiers are very likely needed to move towards the northeast if they do zero rape, zero slavery. If not, it's not going to help them because the northeast is protective in travel, protective from thieves, so they cannot loot. I don't remember where I saw teaching of art. I don't know if it was Lao Tzu or who was it, or Confucius, I don't know, that they were ordering the army not to loot. I don't know where was it, but if you move towards the northeast, you cannot loot. You cannot. I mean, if you have to eat and you have to, food of what's left, yeah. But you move towards the northeast, it means that even if you're a soldier, you're going to be of comfort too. Not of comfort by selling your body, or not in that way, but you're going to be comforting the grieving, and it's basically a move away from it's moving away from besiegement. Northeast is good to besiege, but to besiege cities, it's the most expensive military action, and for most people, like soldiers and so on and so forth, probably I would advise against it unless you know that you are besieging, let's say, Kiryat Gat, and you're abolishing all the traffickers, all the rapists, and so on and so forth. But you will have to comfort the ladies that are left widows, or the daughters that are left without mothers because the mothers traffic the daughters, and so on and so forth. And you cannot loot, and which means you cannot steal and you cannot rape. So if you go into ecstatic psychosis or chaos and the art of war, you cannot rape. So it means if you are on drugs, it might be even not safe for you to move to the northeast. Um, for I want to see if it's also Mars return for Ron Arad, middle. So Iran, yes. For Ron Arad, for example, to move from Lebanon towards Iran, unless it's South Iran, would be to move to the northeast. But he would probably try to move towards Israel, whose direction is not protected. If he tried to, and this could have been if he was captured again, then this could have been okay, because this is Lebanon, Israel, and this is Lebanon, and he was basically around the border. So this is where Hezbollah is. I think either around the border or to the capital city. And anyway, moving to the northeast would mean to Syria, which would be risky. Um, but there are rumors that he was transferred to Iran. So those who wanted to kidnap him could have transferred him to Iran, because this would be the northeast and they would be more protected. But because they tortured Ron Arad, I don't think they would be protected. And this could be also a reason why we don't find Ron Arad, because the people that kidnapped him were not protected. Think about it. They had an asset, they had money, they had something that they could use, whether to bring people or to bring money, and that would be something that could be looted. And to protect themselves from thieves, they could not torture Ron Arad, but they did torture Ron Arad. So he could have been looted from them. And then he would have to continue moving northeast, northeast, northeast until he is found. Again, this is only Al-Qaeda. The eclipses that we have are very associated with Al-Qaeda. And right now, Raoul Mars are meeting next to Fomelad. If there are any additional teachings, by the way, Ron Arad would probably sense them intuitively, because he was so intuitive. He had Mars in this degree. And then maybe additional teachings that I'm not aware of. But this is the teaching for Al-Qaeda. Okay, so take it with a grain of salt, in the sense that other word teachings with the stars could have denoted to other directions, or to more specific directions to the person. For example, if somebody has, I don't know, lot of Anareta, which is the life taker on Al-Qaeda, 27 degrees Virgo, for them it might be to try another teaching. Okay, so these are some things that I can think that counter this advice. For Israel, yes, would be better to basically move towards Iran, as weird as it sounds, because if there are going to be people boots on ground here, then we need to go towards there. And this is particularly challenging for the south. That would go for the north, it means basically ingressing into Syria, and for the south it means Jordan. When it comes to not being able to make that move, which is my situation, I'm with my parent and I'm not going to abandon my parent at war, then I'm basically subjected to whatever whims my parents would have, including opening the door 7th of October. So this is very difficult. But other people, Palestinians, again, same thing with Northeast, but not to loot. If people need food, they can take food. But if people are seeking to loot or to trade, or to loot and trade, this is not protected with Al-Qaeda. Okay, it's not protected for them to loot, or beyond what the survivalistic needs, or let's say to take food and stuff like that. If they do not loot and do not rape, then they can call for protection of Al-Qaeda, and it will protect them from ailments as well. Iranian moving to direction of Israel, direction northeast is protected. Israel attacked and United States attacked Iran, which means Israel is not protected. Wait a second. But Al-Qaeda only protects those who not loot and not rape. And so as they move from Iran, they would have to go through Iraq, or they would have to fly and land in Israel for emergency landing, and this would be like Ron Arad. For Iranian people, Iranian boots on ground people, Iranian aviation, anything that resolves the topic of Ron Arad is protective for them. I said it previously, they must solve this for them because they're not protected. And it's ethical for me to say this because army that abolishes in the war in Ares is Ares. And with Ares we abolish rape and slavery. Those who abolish rape and slavery the best get the dividends of being in the land. So whether it is Israeli, Palestinians, Syrian, Iraqi, Saudi, Yemen, Houthis, I don't know, Iranian, Turkish, and Egypt, or United States, UK, China, Russia, is all about, you see this area, the meeting of seas, a peace in the water, and the water is clear with zero rape, zero slavery, defending from extortion called, abolishing extortion called, defending from rape and slavery, those will. And what do we have the story for Egypt? When Egypt is slave to people, they build the pyramids, and in the pyramids they got the gnosis of the 6 9. What is the 6 9? Aligning the breathing, the inhale and the exhale intentionally, so we are in alignment with feminine, masculine, east, west, north, south. Okay, basically, and then they had to release the slaves. They had to release the slaves. And again, they were not conquered. They let the slaves go, and they were not conquered. But then, why did the promised land for the people, what is told to Israelites? Probably there are other stories that depict that. But why were the people not getting what the promised land was? Because they were sacrificing children. They were trafficking. They were doing all these things what we associate to the elite, which was Molech, which was Mammon, um, and that area back then was also desert. It wasn't always desert. It wasn't always desert. So, wait, thank you. Wait, thank you. It's okay. Thank you, Mama. Um, but for people that will have to basically fly to the region, granted that they're not going to take a hike through Iraq and Jordan, it's good for the nervous system, but we can make them tea when they come back. It's a strong tea. And so, but they would need to fly from Iran, or they want to rely, or they think they can rely on other people to attack Israel. This is very bad for Iran, because they had pact with Syria and Hezbollah because they are closer to Shia. And look at this ocean of Sunnah. It's not same Sunnah as this Sunnah. Because this Sunnah did not want to take this Sunnah when this Sunnah had civil war. Or they rely on what the Palestinians, in this case Iran, would suffer tremendously because these people will no longer protect Iran. They could have this tiny piece of, this tiny piece of nothing, because they would have to compete empire around the seas. But this thing would be completely gone. Completely gone. Why? Because those people rape. And I will tell you even more than that, they do it by order of some of the infiltrated Templars. And this thing would take all Iran and total kaput, because they don't want unified Iran with these seas that connect us from the Persian Gulf to but probably one of the rivers that the Israelites were talking about, um, and through the Mediterranean Sea. That place, they will not keep it as one unit because it's too big for them. They want the entire railway system to go towards Indochina. And to have this as one land is good if that land is called United States or China or Russia, but not if it's called Iran. They would not keep land unified here. Um, and because they would want to divide and conquer the land, they would have the dream that they would conquer Iran. Israel is different geopolitics. Israel is a small strip. And still the Gaza Strip, those things, they were kept. They could definitely, how should I say that? Think about Turkey and the separatists. They could definitely Kurdistan this place. What do I mean Kurdistan this place? That the entire place would be either Israel or Palestine. But they chose to keep that place in conflict so that they have the power to mitigate the conflict, and they have a footstep into the Middle East. But now with the train, they're not going to keep this giant conglomerate. This is why they relied on Iraq to bomb Saudi Arabia oil. Because if they can get the Irani to do that and bomb Iraqi oil and bomb um, Emirate oil and bomb Qatar oil, then what will be? This is why United States says don't bomb the oil of Iran. Why? Because there is already oil company of America in Iraq. It's like they can't. It's like don't bomb our oil in Iran, but they can't say it. But the Israelis are not dumb. They did bomb that oil in Iran because they know that when America has this, they don't need this. But then they will need to have this, which is Turkmenistan, Turkey, and Kurdistan. Where is here Kurdistan? We don't know. We will have to ask maybe Deming or the Rolodex or Baby Zin. That the American were against the Deming, not because of whatever, but because he was prominent figure on the debate between the separatists and the unified Turkey. That gives a railway system from Indochina to Europe that United States also want to have a foot stamp in. But they would need to step somewhere here, boots on ground. And this is what they're doing with Iran. So if Iranian people think to fly their own people to Israel to boots on ground, like United States or Israel, these people basically are in the position of Onarad. There's many combat planes in the area, even friendly fire can knock down. In the case for Onarad, there was something going, particularly now with Mercury retrograde, there was something wrong with basically the thing that holds the missiles, and one bomb was dropped, but it was dropped and was bombed too near, and the plane had to divert, and both people had to abandon the plane because a part of the plane was bombed, or part of the plane was suffering from the bombing, basically holding the bombs. I don't know exactly which part was it, but it sounds almost like a Challenger thing. Although the climate here is not that extreme. Um, and then the pilot was saved, and the navigator Ron went missing. And this is exactly Mars' return for Ron Mars, and the lunar return. There's Mars return and the lunar return, which is very bad for captives. Combat pilots should take care to look at the lunar mansions, because if lunar mansion is bad for captives on that day, then it's not good to fly on that day. To tend to run Arad, to solve the case, but to abolish rape, abolish extortion codes. Never to have sex if another person does not want to have sex. In any setting, marriage, not marriage, war, peace, never. Because this is taking the life force of the person that does that, even if they think, oh, but they're sex workers, or this. No, it's taking the life force of the person that does that. That other person is trafficked. They're not really there willingly, and will is important, because will is a part of the sense of self, and then they cannot will things to be, particularly with their occult. If they are also reliant on occult that siphons energy to will things to be, they are in perpetual worst state and chronic helplessness. Okay? Coalition of the willing. This is true. And this is, but if they do not do these things, if they go zero rape, zero slavery, they do tend to case for Ron Arad, particularly now. Anybody in any Air Force now should be tending to this case, because this is going to be the remedy for them. And then they don't loot, they don't rape, and but they stay ethical. They basically come to support the mourners from the war, and they have to stand into the declaration if they claim that Israel is civilians. For example, the Israel, I want to say allied nations, but it's not. Israel and United States, they did bomb civilians. They did not stand to their claim, which is why they are at. Now, of course, there were missile shooting from civilian centers. Yes, I'm aware of that. But the fact that they did not go, let's say, chirurgical procedure, which means on it, depleted the strategic advantage that they could have had on Iran. But if Iranian people don't make that mistake, and they actually don't harm civilians, and they're actually required to have the chirurgical procedure techniques that Israel had, and the patent was laser. They need to have the good technology to allow them to attack with only what attacks them. And they need to be very cautious with the area, because Israel is a very small country, and nuclear can go boom. Okay, if you bomb nuclear infrastructure, energy can leak, nuclear can go boom, and it can be very risky for those who bomb as well. As it was when United States and Israel bombed nuke infrastructure in Iran. Then they will have peace. They will be accepted well. They will have peace. They have to be, and they will be protected in their journey, particularly, although they don't travel to the northeast, their direction was attacked, so they do have, as long as they don't disown that, they do have advantage. They do have advantage, but not maintaining what I said would take their advantage and deplete their advantage. Boots on ground in Iraq. Boots on ground in Iraq are the same principle as on Iraq, because they need to fly to in Iran. They need to fly to Iran. For Americans, also to Iraq. They need to fly to Iran and then they need to land. Okay, it's Anchanim. And this is exactly the story of Honarad. It's exactly the same thing. Preferably, they should be landing in the direction where, in this particular border, is closer to the seas, and they should be moving all northeast. So basically, it should be like a line of a belt from Gulf of Oman through the Persian Gulf, through the border with Iraq, through Turkey, and all of them should be traveling only northeast. Zero looting, zero rape. And they can be a couple of belts if they land here, but only to move to the northeast, because this is direction where they're protected as long as they don't loot. And when they don't loot, they're also protected from being looted. But they must not rape. They must not attack civilians. They can defend themselves, but not attack civilians. And they must not loot. Only to move to the northeast, and from the belt, each person has their northeast. If let's say somebody got sick within belts, then somebody from the lower belt, if let's say they got sick here, somebody to whom reaching that soldier is northeast, a doctor or army doctor for whom reaching that direction is to the northeast, should be taken precedence over the action. If a lost connection, then they know what they think, but the precedence should be this. Now, I know that not all armies have these instructions, and this is because there are infiltrations to the army. There are other considerations, but there are infiltrations to the army. Army should know exactly why are they doing what they're doing. What is behind the strategy? What is the code behind the strategy? Every single person marching the line, every 17 years old person should know these simple stars-based teachings and occult, because they are the boots on ground. It cannot be just to do orders and not to know what they're doing. Most of them will probably navigate that anyway, because they need navigation abilities and they would need to use the sky, but because they do a lot of clouds sitting in Iran, navigating the sky may become cloudy, so they would need some sort of apps that are like Stellarium, uh, to do navigation. Do not assume that the army is armed with the right equipment. It's something that we cannot assume during such orchestrations. Now, this is what I can say. Americans should be also particularly aware. They put all kinds of weird things in their food. If they cannot rely on their army food, it would be the best, and that would have the talks on what would cause them to do war crimes. If it is cult like, as knitting cult lady says, then I don't know. But and this is particularly important for when they come back from wars, veterans, so that they will have houses. Okay, people that rape, is very difficult to house them. Okay, because it's root chakra. They've depleted their root chakra. People that were raped also because their root chakra was depleted, but people that rape, very difficult to house them because they gave the power away, they gave the will away. When they took somebody else's will, they gave their will away, and then they cannot yield their will, and then they cannot be housed. Now, it can only resolve when we abolish anything to put in the food that could cause them to be in high or in ecstasis that would cause them to rape. And this is they should be wary of the food that is given to them by their own military units. So should Israel is probably, but this is the truth. And in that case, better to steal food in the zone than to rely on food from what is manot krav or what is okay, because in the food they put things, and these things are drugs, and they make them do war crimes. And then when they're doing war crimes, it's difficult to have their rights. In Israel, for example, people came back from the war and they're like, oh, but I'm also like Hamas because I raped. It's like, yeah, but they got both you and Hamas to rape in the same fashion, if that helps. But and then for them it would be question the rabbi that told them that it's allowed to rape, question things that could have biased their thinking, which is sexual trauma, basically. Very difficult, both survivor guilt and this guilt, and very difficult also for to find the rights for them, because they have to basically curate from being perpetrator, and they can feel shame when they're curating. And if they don't feel shame, is also impossible because because they haven't fixed the issue. And this also stands for satanic ritual abuse when I think about this survivors. Um, and then they want to fight for their rights, but it's challenging because we must abolish the practice that made them rape. This is also what I saw regarding Ron Arad. The Zoom wars must be abolished because they did not contribute to resilience during captivity, but the other way around. And they could have caused Ron Arad to fear the people that would search for him, because they would remind him of the torturers in prison. Okay? I made the analogy between that and water discipline, when people did not drink water and were expected to fight and people died. So this technique of training, it does not breed resilience. If they would give him cyanide, it would be better than to have kept him tortured in prison. For the people that say, yeah, they wanted a Ron Arad or case like Ron Arad so that they can say he's held in Iran so that they can do something in Iran in time. Well, I don't know. It was 40 years ago, so I don't know. Um, and and in any case, if it was delayed in 40 years, then I don't know what is the effect of doing something about this now. Because anything that would be done would be too little, too late. I know that there were several attempts and so on and so forth, but like I said, it only works with zero rape, zero slavery. Before the Me Too, they wouldn't even stand a chance. Okay, particularly as Jupiter Spica. Um, and this is very, very important to anybody in Iran to deal with, because it's their people, and for both United States and Israel to deal with, because it's their people. Okay, and I say they're respecting to everyone, because we are in Ares, and it's individual human rights, zero rape, zero slavery. Those who appease that the best, then those are my people, beyond blood, beyond lineage, beyond anything. Um, and this is also important because this is the actual cornerstone for the foundations of unity. Um, Now to the energy reading, because the energy reading is fascinating. Somebody may have been wondering, why was somebody warm to him at the time? And they realized that that person, it wasn't their job. They were not a honeypot. And not only that, they are a person that will kill the rapist. If they can, they would kill the rapist. And if they can't, they cannot promise that they wouldn't be used to assassinate because they would have no sense of self. So if they can't, it means that they would be harmed so much that they don't have their sense of self anymore, and then they would probably be used to assassinate. And somebody may have tried to use their dream maneuvering, or had a dream, or had a shared dream, where they began to be intermeshed with the energy of that person. And so it can be somebody that lost someone to assassination even, and were doing, either they were in charge of doing or running some sort of extortion cult, or trafficking cult is extortion cult, and they saw for clearly that that person, they wouldn't be they wouldn't be able to be with someone for, if someone who's not the person that they were questioning, they wouldn't, that person is not only not gold digger, not honeypot, not this, they would not be able to be with someone for something other than with their own sensual being. And this is where they began to have patterns that could be perpetuating their fears, which means that person that they were questioning, they would not stay for the trauma bond. How should I say that? Confining person, and the fact that the people that have been told that they are chosen, or that they are elite, or that they are this, don't know for the fact that it was so, the people around were so looted, and particularly around the particular things to do with who would be the partner of that person. Let's say it's a military person. Well, the military was looted. Or let's say it's, I don't know, academic person, and well, the academia was looted. So this is where that other person deals on a phenomenal level and not on a personal level. And they thought that, well, that person, or maybe they thought the person, well, couldn't they just date a person who's not like that, or couldn't they just go away from here, go away from there? But no, they confined the person, but that person um, is not gonna be committed to their trauma bond, and then they can create a perpetuation of scenario that they fear, which is to be treason. But to not be treason, you have to be providing a consistent love that is actually loving, and you also will need to be available to provide that love that is actually loving. And so if they participated to took part in certain scams, that person would not go with them with those scams. They would not go, let's say, if there would be, I don't know, a lawyer that would put tapes on person and then present themselves as to represent them in a jurisdiction against those who put tape and so on. That person that was targeted by that, they would not go with that. Okay, I'm not saying that they did that, but if they did such things, or if they put them in a trafficking ring and then they acted as the savior so that they could be like the handler or something like that, yes, I do. Then that person would tell them, okay, if you want to be with me, kill the rapist. If you want to be with me, take that network down. That person would not cover for their crimes, but would tell them, here, we can tackle the thing that made you a criminal and dismantle that on a societal level. Okay, it would not be at the true Misi. Not because it shames or blames, but because if they have a point of interference that others don't, then they use it to dismantle the situations where others can't choose to walk out of violence or out of the network. And they clearly saw that what and now the hidden good was that they clearly saw that whatever attraction the person in question had for them when they didn't know, where they didn't know that that person could be running extortion cult, and they thought that that person was of some sort of representation that is um, or the confrontation that they have with them when they didn't know fully the extent of what things are. Okay, that was genuine, that was authentic. It was not, they were not being seductive, they were not doing honeypots, um, they were not even trying to dismantle anything. They were just seeing something that seemed weird and unclear, and they're like, hey, that's not. It's kind of like, think about the people that were born in the 60s, in the Pluto Leos, okay, during the happy 60s. They were non-monogamy and this and that. And then you see some parties are like loyal with one person. I was like, okay, if it's really true, then why they acting like that? Like, if you're monogamous, you're monogamous. If you're non-monogamous, you're non-monogamous. If you're non-monogamous, pretending to be monogamous, then anyway, like you're setting yourself up for feeling treason when, let's say, your spouse does it or something like that, or your spouse has an affair or something like that. But completely not seeing the extortion cults level of the discussion. And then they had to come to the realization that that person was completely real about who they are, and were completely negating extortion cults. And to have any sort of anything with that person, any communication of that person, if the targeted person reached them first, they were reaching them truly and authentically for what they were saying they were reaching them for. It was something to do with representation or business or changing structure of juristic system to abolish networks of extortion cults and so on. They were exactly what they said. They were intending to do exactly what they said they were intending to do. And if there was some other, I don't know, vibe or attraction or whatnot, it was not something that they were trying to hit on that person or anything like that. Um, but also, it's a situation where, with that person, if they were not doing affiliation for those networks, that person could have been that loving partner. But as long as they do, love cannot reside with those things. And when it comes to the sexuality, then they see beyond reasonable doubt that that person's sexuality incompatible with extortion cult, and they maybe wonder if they would be dead too, like if they're handlers, like if they would be dead too. Well, if that, it would be euthanasia to do so. Well, the question is whether the targeted person could effectively kill the person or not. I don't know, but would they see killing the person as euthanasia if they have to defend themselves from handler situation or from rape situation? Then yeah, it's okay to kill the rapists, and at the same time it's okay to tackle the thing that creates rapists. Now they have to come about with the fact that somebody that they may have slandered, or that they may have some particular way, or they may have targeted, or all of the above, is just a person that with a safe and free person, they would be, with a safe and free partner is compatible, but erotically and non-erotically there would be love. And with a person is not that. If they could be that, and try to show every time that they could be that, so in the place where they could be that, they would receive a good rapport. But the other targeted person, they would not stay there for the trauma bond, in as much as they're able to choose something different. They would target the infrastructure of the entire network. Um, Now they have to stand into understanding, well, hey, that person could actually be into me, and it's only the extortion call that and it's like, yeah, aren't you married? Aren't you having a girlfriend? Or like, it's not even, we're not even contacting regarding that point. And at the same time, they kind of brought themselves onto the situation where they wanted to show where they're like, wait a second, I'm not that, I'm not that, I'm not that. I was like, yeah, um, there is no such thing as a hoe. And because there is no such thing as a hoe, I am not a hoe. Because it was expected for the targeted person to say, hey, I am not a hoe, I am not a prostitute, I'm not a sex worker, I'm not a honeypot. Well, there is no such thing, because those things are created by torture. And because there is no such thing, I am not that. Because it's not something that I will to be. So if you want love, you better not take the will from people or children. And if you are in a situation where your will um, was taken, then we to tend to that. And again, if that's what this person is already doing, then this was an affirming energy reading or affirming dream, where they saw, hey, that person, they could be shit fuck attracted, but those things they can't do. And the people that do those things, the people are that already don't have a sense of self. And I can say, I see sometimes the floaters of the lady down the street that is trafficked. Sometimes her energy would be with me. It's almost like a child escaping somewhere, which tells me she was ritually abused. Um, and the minute she could close herself in a place and go to sleep, escape that, she did that. And she's not there, she doesn't want to be there, and she was so ritually abused that. And also think about 30 years, how the chronicle compounding effect is like an A bomb. Only one person like that in society is already an A bomb that can drop tomorrow. And what I saw was also how in Hiroshima and Nagasaki there would be so much atrocities of rape that Hiroshima and Nagasaki were ending that. And are those things not risk for the situation for this area where I'm broadcasting from? Yes, they are. They also are for Europe. They also are for Iran. They also are for United States. I was just watching Shaina Conde yesterday, and she said sometimes the people from United States, they don't read the news because they already go through so much that they cannot even read the news of what United States bombed in Iran and so on and so forth. And they try to create a certain situation like this in Israel. Basically, 7th October was supposed to generate that. The people will be too busy with the fact that there is war and that to recover from the Nova and the first 7th October attack. And those are such severe traumas. It makes me think as a survivor to family that was surviving Holocaust, that if this is what Germans experienced in World War II, and it can, and very likely it is, because the women, they were sent back to home and not allowed to work so that the men will have work. And then there were the suffragists, and then It's kind of like what's going on in both United States and Israel right now. And the dark occult is Nazi occult, and the dark occult was used also on civilians within. So let's say in the Nazis they used the dark occult very likely also on civilians. This is why both Jews and Nazis saying the Gedanke ist frei, or the thought is free. Um, when I was in visit in Dachau, we met lady there because we had to do laundry, and she was helping us with laundry. We paid her some money, and she was old lady, and she said she lived around Dachau during the war, and she said that we saw there is something enclosed there, but we didn't know what is in there. Now here is the thing, even if there was concentration camp next to them, the level of trauma and dissociation that in any time they speak they can be put in there is already reason for person to say they didn't know. Yesterday I was watching Uma, and they say they send food to Palestinian children. Um, and there was even a thing questioning, is it safe for me to try to transfer money? Is that organization actually reaching the children? Then is it safe for me to try to transfer money? Wait a second, the fact that I even need to ask that. Because even in resistance to Nazi occult, resistance to rape and slavery in all its forms, in all its origins, we move with economicity. This is why if somebody, let's say, try to target me, but that person is within a structure of network, I don't target this person. I talk about the structure. Because tomorrow, and with the war cases, they took survivor of ritual abuse, they tortured him, and then he began to call to violence. So I talk about the structure. And here is the thing, anybody that did not abolish rape and slavery, anybody like that, and all of its residues, to know that there's no such thing as a whore, there's no such thing as a prostitute, there's no such thing as working lady. You even see how my language changed in the past years, where I would refer to the trafficked lady down the street that as a working lady, because this was the way that I could show respect. And now I understand what to call a working lady is gaslighting, and it does not show respect. Because I can see her floaters. It's the basically personalities of the energy of the person when they are ritually abused. And they try to dictate what the personality is of that person, because this is what they do with ritual abuse. And by the way, the people that would be sent to program, they would be people that would be, if they would be seen as valueless, then they would say something like, you are a criminal, you were a criminal, and you'll be a criminal, or something like that. And this is what they do to this lady. They say, you were a whore and you'll be a whore. But all of that fundamentally needs to be dismantled. And here is the thing, when people are not attacked, they can speak against the structure. During attack is different. And when the foundation, when the cornerstone, when somebody lays the foundation by trying to traffic people, whether it's to a city or whether it's to oil infrastructure or whatnot, then from the foundation, whenever that Saturn Neptune arises, something is dismantled from the foundation. And there are many things that are dismantled from the foundation, and at the same time they try to put the cornerstone. And this is why with one of my videos I said, it's not Israel-Iran, United States. No, it's the infrastructure of the oil, it's the infrastructure of the railway, it's whatever infrastructure is cementing its cornerstone by trafficking, rape, and torture. All of those foundations are from the foundations to be dismantled, and they work like a bubble that inflates, 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 inflates. Just before one thinks to go short on it, it pops. And also houses where they have traffic in houses, all of those will be bombed. But also with the people they go, because they use a lot of excuses. I say, oh, but this person has disability, nobody would want them, or so on and so forth. Then they would bomb the person with a disability, because the person with disability, I know a person with disability, they have CP, they were raped. They were raped. They didn't want to hire a male prostitute. And they had to move houses all the time because they would be raped in those houses because they have CP, because they have disability. Even there were neighbors that tried to play like they don't believe them because they were sick of the screams when the person would be raped. In Yosef ben Mattityahu 73, Beersheba, that was for the person that had disability and was raped. And I know this person because they were studying linguistics, English linguistics with me. And they were very competent at what they do. They were not seeking to be sex worker because they were raped in past, and it was not, they could make good money doing translations. They were so competent in writing, but they were dealing with, it was not even the CP that was bothering them as much as it was being raped. They were going to study clinical therapy for speech, and in the place where they lived, they were raped. And then in the place where they lived, in Yosef ben Mattityahu 73, Beersheba, they were also raped. So actually disabled people need protection from being raped, not the right to rape someone for money because supposedly they cannot find love. And in fact, I had male friend was also disabled. The Mason took him basically to rape a woman that was trafficked, and he himself, what he described, that he was describing the association that he would see body parts, and then because he would have like orgasm from that, then later he said he felt unloved there. Of course he could, but it bothered him also with intimacy. because this person, yeah, he had disability, but his personality was, um, and also his looks, and people wanted him. People were attracted to him. But because of this Mason